on this one, Keeko, men are the primary victims of war, to which you disagree.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Also, Maria, you also disagreed with that.
I mean, if you're saying victims of war, as in like, yes, they're the ones who are picked to go and fight war, sure. But if you're talking about like where soldiers are sent and where the war is actually being taken place, I think equal parts are equal victims. I think everyone is equally a victim of war. Like, we from our country sent men over to different countries, and that sometimes the actions that they did to the women and children in those countries were not okay. So that's why I think both genders were affected equally.
Let me ask you a question. So I agree that trauma can be debilitating. PTSD, things like this, can be brutal on a person. But do you agree with me that you can heal from traumas?
Yes, you can heal from traumas, but it depends.
Can I ask you, can you heal from a trauma if you're dead?
No, but it's the same thing.
No.
She's not in frame enough.
But like, sorry, me?
Yeah.
Yeah, turn your phone the opposite way, please. I know you're waiting on your thing.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I get that sentiment. That's why I'd say, like, when they were picking random numbers for different men to go to the war and all that. So I'm not saying, it's not like if you're picking the country that are sending the men to go to war, the men from that country are more affected. But then if you're discussing the women that are affected in the country that we're fighting against,
There's still going to be men in those countries too.
but they died being assaulted, so it's the same thing. They died in war, they died
They
being
don't
assaulted.
usually die being assaulted.
But they did.
Some, but overwhelmingly.
And some men died too.
Well, a lot more men die than women do in war. Significantly higher numbers. And my question just
because
becomes...
statistically, we only look, when we do statistics, we look at the men that we sent to war and we document how many came back. We don't document how many women we killed while we were in those countries.
In fact,
That's not incorrect.
Yeah, it is. In fact, we overwhelmingly do it. So, for instance, you could take...
But it's usually inaccurate.
Nope, it's actually quite accurate.
Andrew, we have no way of statistically proving how many women we hurt because we don't document it. They are killing these women and throwing them in the bushes.
And children.
They're not being counted for. They're not being accounted for. But every man who didn't make it back home was accounted for.
Every human
That's the
being,
difference.
roughly, not all, right? But almost every human being who died in the Hiroshima and Nagasaki blast were accounted for.
No, because they're still dying to this day from the chemicals that they're
they're
consuming.
Not. They're
Yes,
not.
they are.
They're not dying from the Hiroshima Nagasaki blast. The radiation's been gone for years and years and years and years and years. But this aside, if you talk about like the Japanese invading Nanking, for instance, we have a pretty good idea of the death count there for men and women both. We don't. You could make the argument, I suppose, we don't know the entirety of the SA count. I would agree with that, right? That's a much harder thing to track. But they're still alive, meaning they can still at least heal from that.
We know of. We don't just because you can't.
No. We can take an accounting for Stacy was here yesterday.
Can't account
now
all the women that are
Stacy's not here.
You can't account all the women that were forever maimed from those things. If we can't even count the ones that were SA'd, we don't count. We don't count all the women and children or even other men, because I'm sure there was also men who were victims of those things.
Sure.
We don't account for them.
But can they heal from those things?
But I'm saying we don't account for all the ones, just because you're saying, oh, they were just SA'd. No, we don't know which women were killed or not. We know
which women were killed. Yes, we do.
We don't.
Yes, we do.
We don't.
Why do you think?
We don't.
Why do you think in
our
modern
own history, any country, even other countries, will never admit how many people they hurt for us? It's the same thing.
Why do you think
they will never?
But even if we just had estimates, even if we were just going off of estimates, we didn't have the exact clear picture. We were just going off of estimates.
We have no clue how many women were there before we touched down versus after.
If we were to assume, for instance, in Germany, that let's just say, right, these are wildly inaccurate numbers, but they're fine to demonstrate. Let's just say that 100,000 soldiers in Germany died. Okay, 100,000, and 500,000 women in Germany were SA'd, and only like 30,000 died. Okay, it's horrible that 30,000 women died, but the ones who were SA'd, do you at least agree with me that there is a potential for them to get past that trauma of the SA, whereas for the dead soldier, that does not exist?
actually
that's not what I'm
disagree.
arguing with you against. I agree with that, but I'm just saying the numbers do not constitute accurately the amount of dead soldiers versus women or children affected by it. 'Cause
They
we
do,
count,
though.
No, because we count
Yeah, they do.
we count every single man who doesn't make it back home. We don't count every man that they touched in those countries. We have no clue what the
The
fuck they were doing.
European nations-
If you think that those men, what do you think they're doing? They're coming home
I'll
from war
explain it
and
in a
saying,
second.
yeah, I essayed this woman in this tribe and this child in this tribe. No, they're not coming home and saying those things. We have no clue what the hell
do
they
you
were
realize that many nations, right, for 200 years have been taking a consensus?
doing. And the
Or,
consensus.
I'm sorry, a census, not a
I-
consensus.
And the census
But you know, hang
never
on, hang on,
asked me if
hang
I
on.
was assaulted.
Did
They asked me my
yeah, I know,
race. and
but did they
ethnicity.
count if you were alive?
But that's not the point.
Answer my question, Keeko.
But
Did
a
the
dead person can't.
Can I come
make-
to your
fill out
door,
a
Keeko,
census.
and count you on the census if you're dead?
Do you think Afghanistan is doing a
I don't
census?
know. Okay, so we're gonna.
You think
if it's-
Afghanistan's doing an accurate
If you won't
census?
answer
No.
a single question,
That's my answer.
okay, so let's back up. When somebody goes, if the census goes, right, and they count Keeko on the census, does Keeko need to be alive to be counted?
Yes.
Okay, so if they go the next year and Keeko is not alive, can they count Keeko?
No.
Okay, well then we can pretty accurately determine the numbers of how many women and men, hang on, die, including in war, because they still take a census.
But not those foreign countries.
Which ones? We had European wars. What do you mean?
I'm not talking about those ones.
Which ones?
You said about war being affected, and even if those European wars, you're talking about census. Because I already answered your question. Do I believe that if you are still alive, that's not what I'm arguing anymore. If you want to keep going on that, that's your whole overarching point. We can end the conversation because I already agreed with you that they have
Then
the
men
opportunity.
have to be the primary victims.
No.
Well, then that makes
That's
no
what-
sense.
That's what you just. A victim doesn't have to be dead. You don't have to be dead to be a victim.
But
that's never been a
we're not
classification of
asking if
victim.
these people aren't victims.
That's what he asked. It was a victim
no,
of war.
No, he didn't. He
Yeah,
said
that's-
who's the
read the question.
primary victim.
And you don't, to be a primary victim doesn't mean you have to be dead. We're all
Okay.
still victims, and I said we're both.
Okay,
There's
but
no
nobody's
primary.
disputing that.
We're all equally.
Okay.
Men lose their lives by being forced to fight these wars, and women and children lose their lives from the men who go and complete those wars,
Yeah.
and maybe even the men in their own country taking advantage of the times that they're in.
Okay.
That was my whole point.
Keeko,
That's a
if
different question.
A meteorite blasted through the ceiling and killed you right now, and all of us in this room had to see it. Who is the primary victim of the meteorite?
Everyone who was in the line of the meteorite. There's no. It's not. We're not gonna. I'm not gonna count from a
We're
meteorite
all
if
alive.
you're a man or a woman.
We're all alive. None of us got hurt. We just had to watch that happen, which is horrible, but we did see it
There's
happen.
no man or a woman answer in there. It depends on
I'm
the
not
county
asking
number.
about a man or a woman. So here, very specific to my question. Meteorite crashes through the ceiling, hits you in the head, explodes your head. You're dead instantly, and all of us have to watch it. The meteor didn't hit us; it hit you. Okay. Everybody in this room is definitely affected by that. Who would you say was the primary victim of the meteorite?
I would be the primary victim.
You would be the primary
Yeah.
victim. Why? Because the people around us, around you, even though we could be traumatized by that, could potentially heal. You, on the other hand, could never heal, right?
But if I'm okay, so with your same analogy,
Mm-hmm.
meteorite comes down, hits me, explodes my head, and then I go and all of you guys, you're victims now too. You're still primary victims because that meteoroid that came down
What?
was a whole. It's still, no matter who is the on
What
site,
the
you all
I have
are
no
victims.
idea what you
meteor
just said.
shrapnel, like more than one.
Like, if
you were the only one that died, but other people.
No,
were
I'm not
like-
saying that. I'm saying
Oh.
like, because I'm not, maybe not the exact analogy he was using, but he said if I got hit by a meteoroid, right?
Like
Yeah.
you died, but other
No,
people.
but I don't, I'm alive.
Oh.
The meteoroid comes down,
Yeah.
hits me in the head,
Yep.
but I'm still alive with the meteoroid in my head. Nobody
Yeah.
got hit, and I go around and fuck all you up. You are still victims of that meteoroid because I would have never done that if the meteoroid
Hang on.
didn't exist.
Completely agree. Who would the primary victim of it be, though?
That's not the fucking question.
That is. Do you want me to read the question?
That's not the point of the
Well,
question.
what if-
Brian,
you-
what does the question say?
What's the point of the question?
It
what's the
asks.
point of the
It asks
question?
who are the primary. Okay, so this is number 14.
So you're talking about primary. You're talking about
Men
initial.
are the primary victims of war.
So you're saying they're the first victim.
No, they're
What
the.
if you die?
Are you talking about
No.
primary as first? Because the example you used,
No,
all I
no.
was
No,
using
no,
for
no. Hang on,
primary
I'll explain
because
it.
I was the first person who was hit, and then I affected everybody else. So you're saying that men are primary because they're the first ones who were
No, not
infected,
because they're the
and then what
first.
they went through
No,
was
Keeko, you're
causality on everybody else. That doesn't make a difference.
No,
it doesn't.
The word primary is main.
Okay, so if I was the main person who was hit, and I fucked everybody else up because I was hit,
Then you would be the main victim.
but they were still victims of the war. They're still primary victims of the
Nobody
war.
said they're not victims.
You know
We're
that's
asking
not
who's the
point.
main
You-
victim.
Can I
Andrew,
add
you know
something?
absolutely that that's not the point.
It is the point.
It's not,
What-
and everyone here can see
I
that
wanna-
that's
So you
not the
think
point.
you think that men?
What?
The reason that this is actually phrased this way, men are the primary victims of war, is to make sure that it's noted that
Okay.
all people can be victims of war.